Hello, everybody. Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite para você que está assistindo do Brasil. Nós estamos aqui com Hollie Benincosa, da QABA, para responder algumas perguntas sobre o processo de certificação. Essa entrevista, obviamente, será em inglês, mas vocês têm acesso às legendas, então, obrigada pela sua participação. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I am Lily from the Behavior Web, one of the course providers for the QABA certification. And at this point, we only offer certifications for the QASPSS certification. In the future, we might offer others, but at this point, this is all we offer. And we have with us here other awesome people. And let me ask them to introduce themselves. So, hi, Valeria, would you like you to introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hi, thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Valeria Parejo. I'm a BCBA and QBA. I live in Tampa, Florida, and I provide services in Brazil through a company called Changing Behavior. I'm also one of the instructors at the Behavior Web, offering classes in Portuguese to complete the QASPS classes for the certification. And that's my my connection to Brazil.
Awesome. Juliana, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Julianna Gamadalto. I'm a BCBA and QBA from Brazil also. I have a center here in Brazil called John, and it's after my son that is 13 years old and he has autism. That's how I became a BCBA and now a QBA. And I just got certified to become a course provider for the QASPS.
Awesome. Mylena, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Mylena Lima. I'm a QBA and BCBAT. Live in Brazil. I run a clinic called Casulo Behavior Health. I just became a coursework provider for QASPS. And I'm very excited to have this conversation with Hollie.
Awesome. Hollie, thank you so much for your time, your willingness to be here with us. Would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I first off want to say thank you for inviting me. I am very excited for this discussion. My name is Hollie Benincosa, and I am the Executive Director with the QABA Credentialing Board. I am physically located in Utah in the States, and we have our main office that's in Irvine, California. So I'm excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. So Hollie, could you give us a brief description of what is QABA and a brief history, and also infuse a little bit about why get a certification with QABA?
Sure. So the QABA Credentialing Board, QABA is the Qualified Applied Behavior Analysis Credentialing Board, and we just say QABA because it's a lot simpler. QABA has been around since 2012. It was created by folks in behavior analysis, some BCBAs, BCBADs, who felt that there was a need for a credentialing board who has more of a focus in autism. So we are behavior analysts first, but we do have a focus in autism and other developmental disabilities. We offer a 3-tier model. One is the entry-level ABAT, Applied Behavior Analysis Technician. We offer a mid-level supervisor, the Qualified Autism Services Practitioner Supervisor, or the QASP, QASPS. And this is our mid-level supervisor who has a very important role, giving support to the master's level supervisor, who is the Qualified Behavior Analyst, the QBA. All of our exams are online with remote proctoring. We have accreditation through ANSI, which meets the international standards for ISO 17024. And so we are the only internationally accredited credentialing board that offers applied behavior analysis credentials.
This is awesome. Congratulations. Mylena and Juliana, would you talk a little bit about the status of applied behavior analysis for autism in Brazil, both in terms of training and practice, and if there are any gaps that you could briefly let us know about?
Sure. Brazil has a long history of training in behavior analysis, but not in applied behavior analysis. So we have since the 50s, actually, the end of the 50s, we have different institutions, universities in Brazil that provide very good training on behavior analysis. And actually we have a very productive community of researchers in Brazil in behavior analysis. However, we have a way less tradition in providing services in behavior analysis, especially in autism. So that comes with a lot of difficulties because of the lack of regulation. We don't have a behavior analysis as a profession, nor we have any type of registry in Brazil, what makes very difficult for parents to look for people that are competent in providing services, and for people that would like to get training in behavior analysis to become providers as well.
Yes, yeah. So that's really a tough situation to have the consumer of ABA services to be. Hollie, how do you think that QABA could bring support and some, what do you think QABA's role or QABA's certifications could bring to aid the current situation of ABA and autism treatment in Brazil? You're muted, Hollie, I'm sorry.
I saw the notification, I apologize. So I think the fact that the QABA board is internationally accredited, we have done a lot of outreach and continue to do outreach, connecting providers and informing them of QABA. And our whole goal is the standardization of applied behavior analysis worldwide. You know, we want ABA to continue. You know, our goal is to make sure that people aren't making up what applied behavior analysis is. So the fact that we're having this discussion, doing some outreach, connecting with each other, you know, building rapport with communities, everything, even autism awareness, I think is so important. And so, you know, I think just continuing these conversations and word of mouth, advertising, things like that, you know, we can get the word out to help provide services. And the fact that we offer remote proctoring means that we can have people in some of the most remote areas take the exam. They don't have to travel to a testing center. Their employers or, you know, anybody paying for an exam won't have to pay for travel because they can take the exam from the comfort of their own home or office. So I think it's a lot of cost savings. And, you know, we also do offer a cost adjustment for developing countries. You know, so what works for one country isn't going to necessarily work for another. So we do offer a cost adjustment, which I think is very helpful as well.
Absolutely, it is because here in the States, we earn dollars and we spend dollars, but people in other countries, they earn their local, you know, currency, and it's not as valued as it is in dollars. So it does make a difference for sure. So we're thankful for that. So how far has QABA extended into Latin America? Are there any other countries in Latin America who are also utilizing the QABA certification, or is just Brazil that at this point only Brazilians are considering it? How is its penetration?
You know, in the last year, we went from 2 countries to 25 countries. And that's just in 1 year. So it's really exciting how it's growing. So we do have certificates in Ecuador, Argentina, Mexico, obviously Brazil, Portugal, you know, a lot of Spanish speaking countries and Portuguese speaking countries. And so it's really exciting to see that growth. And like I said, in 2020, we had 25 total countries. And I can tell you that this year we've already grown a couple more countries.
That's amazing. What is it that an individual needs to have in order to become certified by QABA?
Sure. So for each credential, it requires coursework. You know, depending on which level you're looking at, it's 40 hours for the entry level. These are people who may be interested in the field and are new. So that requires 40 hours of coursework and 15 hours of supervised field work. So, you know, that supervision piece I think is really important, because then it shows that you're putting that knowledge into practice. And so that goes for all 3 levels. Everybody has to complete coursework, fieldwork verification. They need to pass a competency exam, and then they'll be able to go ahead and practice. But the maintenance portion of their credential continues after they are certified. So they still need that supervised field work to make sure that they are still on top of what's going on. They need to go into continuing education, collect courses, do additional trainings, and yeah, and I don't know, I love it. I love the process.
Yeah, so what you're saying in essence is that QABA embraces the model of scientist practitioner. So
Yes.
even after we are fully practitioners, we are still required to continue studying and developing as a professional. And so you mentioned that every level still has supervision, including the master's level?
So the master's level, the QBA, has supervision until that person is certified. So once they have completed their certification, they've passed the exam, they do not need supervision. They provide supervision for the other levels and candidates who are applying for that master's level supervisor. That the QBA requires 32 CEUs for renewal. So they are still continuing their education and training, but they don't need supervision because they're the top tier.
In terms of the amount of hours of supervision, for the QASPSS, they are essentially, they have a title of supervisor, and they are, you know, credentialed and trained to supervise the AVETs, but they still have to maintain supervision after passing the exam. So the question is, do they have to maintain the same level of supervision, the same amount of supervision prior to passing the exam to post the exam?
Sure. So when a candidate is applying for the QASPS, they need to complete 500 hours with 5% supervision, which would be about 25 hours. Once they pass the exam, they continue with that 5% supervision for the next 500 hours. And then at that time, their supervisor can, you know, consult with them and just kind of discuss. If that supervisor feels that they don't need as much supervision, then we can go ahead and decrease the supervision to 2% instead of 5%, which I think is phenomenal, because that gives, you know, more trust in that QASPS and empowers them.
And also allows the QBA to supervise other QASPSS and multiply the service. So this is really a good model. Yes. I agree. Would anybody else like to ask a question or make a comment? I don't want to be the only one talking. I'm a chatterbox, but I want to give everybody the opportunity to.
So I have a question. I would like to know what Hollie thinks about this dialogue, this conversation with other cultures, because when you go to different countries, you all of a sudden you have a different way of, you know, the people go about the day-to-day life, and how the QABA is taking that necessity of cultural sensitivity to make sure that it is relevant for each culture to have the training and the supervision and all the safeguards that certification can provide to a professional.
Well, first of all, I would love to say that I embrace different cultures. I love learning about people and cultures, and like I said, I got to get down to Brazil because I would love to be immersed in it, right? So one of the things that we've done is QABA has created an international standards committee, and this committee has been so helpful. They are basically representatives from around the world, different countries, and they bring so much knowledge to QABA. Obviously, I'm not in other countries, so I don't exactly know the process there. I don't know, so getting their information is so important. And so what we've done is we've gathered some of their thoughts on our code of ethics, and we have revisions that have been made and are still being made to be more inclusive. Because in the US, it's interesting because one thing is gifts. A lot of people, you're not allowed to accept gifts, whereas in some of these other countries, that's considered rude. So we do have a lot of cultural considerations that we discuss. Some other revisions that have been made and are being made is the point of privacy and confidentiality. In the States, we have HIPAA laws. Well, in Pakistan, they don't have HIPAA laws, so the International Standards Committee has come together and helped create guidelines for these privacy and confidentiality sources, so that way we can uphold those standards worldwide.
Excellent.
Yes, it's a great thing to see that QABA as a board is open to feedback and a conversation with people in other cultures and in other countries. As a member of the community that uses the board, I always feel very grateful of how accessible the board is. So that is really, it makes me feel part of a team.
Yes.
Would anybody like to comment on the cost that it would be to not have such a certification in places like Brazil? Yes, Valeria.
I can comment, and of course I would love for Juliana and Mylena to talk about this too, since they are in Brazil currently and working. For me, the certification, and I'm a recent QBA. I got inspired becoming a QBA when it was clear that it would be the only international certification available that was offered, and I felt that it would provide the public in Brazil an opportunity to have at least standards of what is expected of a behavior analyst with a certification, international certification. Even though Brazil has a great tradition of behavior analysis, like Mylena said before, the part about service provision in behavior analysis, particularly for people with autism, is fairly recent, and because there's no regulation currently, families are kind of left to their own devices trying to find someone who is competent, and even though in Brazil there is an organization, an ABA organization that is trying to create a Brazilian certification, they're not quite there yet. And so this would be a good opportunity for families to know that people that hold the credential from the QABA board meet those standards, and so would have a little bit more, feel more confident about the services that they're receiving. So I think that that's one of the advantages of certification, and obviously the disadvantages of not being certified is like, again, unfortunately, families may be getting services that are quote unquote ABA, but you cannot guarantee the level of knowledge for that professional, the level of experience of that professional. So that would be the main risk in my view.
Mhm. The risk is for treatment and for outcomes, and I venture to say even trauma.
Right.
Yes, Lily, that's very, it's a concern. That is, it's a growing concern in Brazil, coming from the people that are ready to a behavior analysis for a long time. I mean, I'm 30 years in this area, and I can say that I'm the third generation in Brazil, actually. So there is a lot of good people that are trying to establish standards, but it goes very slowly when we consider the need of services. So it's our having the possibility of providing certification such as that QABA is offering is important, so parents can really have access to effective treatment and compare services when they need to, considering the other possibilities that they have, right? So if you can, like Hollie said, you can. You are sure this person went through all these steps to become competent. It is way more better than you just go, and step in the dark without knowing if this person can really provide effective services or not. So I believe that as behavior analysis is our role to provide information for the community and the consumers, so they can make a good decision about how to go about getting the service that they need, right? So it is something that's very important, as you have said. When ABA is not done right, we don't know what can come up in the future, right?
Also, I am worried about, I'm sorry, I saw that Hollie wanted to say something. I lost my train of thought. So, Hollie, it's your turn.
I was just going to say, parents with autism are having, some of them have a hard time if they don't have services for their children. And so you think about it, and would you want someone to provide services who just went on YouTube and, oh, I know applied behavior analysis? Or would you want someone who went through coursework, supervised field work, and had to pass a competency exam? I personally would have more faith in the person who had to go through, all the training. So
yeah, especially the practical part, because here in Brazil there is no, since it's not
Regulated.
we have a very hard time telling for the people that are really allowed, or let's say qualified to provide the services that are needed. Like they meet the minimum requirements to become a provider of services that will get results with the kids. So when, like, for example, in my situation, that's what drove me all the way to the United States, and because I really needed someone to take care of my child that I could trust. And it was a very hard to get services here back then. It was in 2008 when I had my son. And so that made me go to Brazil, to the United States, and then find services. I lived there for 5 years. So knowing that, I knew that I had to come back. So I decided to study and become master's in ABA, so I could become a BCBA and provide services here and help kids here.
that's amazing.
So that's what we face, back then.
Yeah. And the other thing is, you know, having the certification being offered in Brazil and in Latin America and in other countries, I think it adds to an important piece, which is the education of the public.
Mhm.
So now the public know that they deserve better, and then they
Right.
can start asking for better. That's another thing. One other, go ahead, Valeria.
I wanted to add something because, I'm not familiar with the other countries in Latin America, how things are set up, but as Mylena had mentioned previously, we do have a tradition of behavior analysis in Brazil, particularly experimental analysis of behavior, that is decades long. So I think that what the QABA is offering is that a scientist practitioner model, which is very different of what we have in Brazil, because up until this point, you may have highly qualified people in behavior analysis that may have doctorates in behavior analysis, but because their education was focused only on the science part, right? The expectation of their degree was to just be professors and scientists. Even highly qualified people had not been trained in the practitioner portion of our job, which is a totally new set of, a new repertoire, completely different than what you need to be a successful scientist. And so having that portion, like in order for you to get the certification, you have to be, have the coursework, right? Have the theoretical background. And on top of that, having the supervised experience. I think that that's what creates a good service provider, right? And so I think that this is what's making a difference, because you might be a wonderful scientist, a great professor, but that doesn't mean that you have acquired the skills to be able to help a family or provide supervision to people that are working in the field, because you do not have that experience. So I think that that's an important portion of what the QABA is bringing to the table.
And also for those who are practitioners, if you're not, you know, responding to our credential or certification, you may very well just finish your training and that's it, never study again, you know. And because we have to continue with continuing education credits, it forces us to maintain ourselves current on the field. So and that brings the science part to the practitioner part. So this is really a good model to have. Yes,
I would
ma'am.
like to add the relevance to have a code of ethics to, abide by.
Mhm.
It's very important because when you establish a community that has agreed upon a set of rules of conduct, and this is very important on the separate provision portion of the behavior analysis of the science, because we have to make sure that we put persons first, a client first. We have to have a centered, client-centered approach, right? So although this is a wonderful a possibility of to build a career, right? This should not be the first thing in growing this field. The first thing that we should think about, it is about to make sure that the families can get effective treatment, can get services. And then in Brazil, we have a very large, territory, which makes it very difficult for people to get services when they are in, different places around the country, and to be able to provide the certification and using technology such online training and supervision, and even the proctoring piece of the testing is very important for us, right? So growing the community of behavior analysis in the way that is sustainable, it's very important for our country.
You are unmuted, Juliana.
Thank you for that, actually, because it helps us to, at least have how to get qualified and then bring out better treatment for the kids. And after all, that's all what it is about. So we're here for the kids, and we're here for better treatment and qualified people.
That's,
So
that's one thing I love about this field too, is we focus on the individual. It's not the same for everybody. It's like that quote, once you've met someone with autism, you've met one person with autism, because everybody's so different. Whereas some folks may need only 20 hours a week, where another individual needs 40 hours a week. It's not the same for everybody. It's very different. So I love that it's individualized.
yeah.
So that brings me to another point. So we are, the four of us who are not Hollie here are mostly working with a Brazilian clientele and working towards this certification. The Kazulu, the John, and the Behavior Lab, we are coursework providers. And we made a decision to become coursework providers in a country where there is no law that mandates that anybody become certified, that there is no, the contingencies are not in favor of anybody being certified. Let's just put it that way. And still, we decided to move forward with that. And I'd like each one of us to speak a little bit about that. And Hollie, I would like you, when it comes your turn, to speak of QABA's mission and why is it important for QABA to move beyond the US, beyond North America. So because I'm already speaking, so I'm gonna say, for me, for the Behavior Lab, it was important to bring this certification to Brazil because I received many requests to supervise cases, and there is no way I could serve all the cases that were offered to me. And the only way that I could serve those cases would be to prepare other people to be able to do the job, with a little more more grounding, with a little more, with the basic minimum that you need to operate in this field. And not to say that I know everything, I definitely don't. I still need 32 credits every cycle of continuing education, plus another 36 from the BACB. So, yep, it's a lot of studying every year. It doesn't stop. It will never stop. I do not know everything, but the little I know, that's more than those practicing in Brazil. That's the reason that pushes me forward to push for this certification and try to educate the public in Brazil. Valeria?
I was going to add too that regarding the question of supervision, having a coursework in Portuguese and having people go through the coursework makes it much easier to provide supervision, because you feel confident that this person has met these requirements. They may not know everything, but they have these basic concepts down, and so you know where to start. Sometimes, like Lily said, people contact me, and when I start talking to people, it would have to start from scratch, because they really do not have enough study, enough coursework to even start working and providing those services safely, especially with a remote supervision, which is what I would be providing. So I think like providing the coursework in Portuguese creates a cohort of people that have that basis, that have solid knowledge of those concepts and principles, and can build up their practices from there. Once again, a lot of courses are available in Brazil, but because there's not a regulation, you can't really tell what people know or don't know when they come to you and say, well, I've studied ABA, right? Having the coursework that is approved, I think, clarifies things for the students, but definitely for the potential supervisors. I feel much more confident knowing that, well, someone did this coursework and I know what they're supposed to know, and then I can build up from there.
Okay. Well, I believe that one important thing is choice, right? Because one could argue that why not just wait for the Brazilian certification? We should do right here. So why we have an international certification and so on. However, I believe that that is a lot of Brazilians that have different type of training, and the training is going to continue to be diverse. That's how we are going to move. So people go abroad, they get education, they come back to the country, they should be able to, and you should be able to allow that. This mobility is important for behavior analysis, right? So in 1 year or two, should we have more than one certification allowed or in Brazil, approved in Brazil? That's great. That's good for a behavior analyst. So they can choose what is the path that they want to go about becoming competent in this area. So I believe that's important to have choice. And right now, I think that we were pretty privileged to be able to bring that to Brazil, as we have completed all these steps to become supervisors and coursework providers. So why not provide choice? I believe that that's important.
Juliana would like to say something.
Now I think that what we have to do is like our main how can I say main task, or like character, or important part, like the most important part that we play right now as ABA providers and services and everything, is that we need to educate everyone and show how important it is to get all those hours of practice going, and to get all the learning and everything that we do, so we can become minimally qualified. And that's the huge difference between knowing all your stuff but just not practicing. There's a huge difference between practicing and not. So that's the most important part that we play right now, because we are educated. When people come to us, we need to educate everyone and tell them, this is the way you should go. And that happened to me back then. You know, like my mentor, she came to me and said, Juliana, oh, you want to open up something in Brazil? Okay, but that's what you need to do. So that's what we do here. And then people come to us and then we say, okay, this is what you need to do. Because we're not going to be able to be supervising them for their entire life. Exactly. So they need to get going, and they need to learn first and do their things first. Yes, I'm going to help you getting there, but you need to do your homework too, because we're not going to be feeding them knowledge all the time and not getting them, you know, real professionals that will actually help kids.
Absolutely. It's about multiplying. Hollie?
So kind of along those lines, I think it's amazing. I think this field is amazing because, you know, you are providing services to parents to make their family lives, you know, more successful and just happy and, you know, less frustrating. And so I just think this field is amazing, you know, because you guys are providing the training, you're providing the coursework. And, you know, that's the whole thing with QABA is we want to empower providers. We want to empower you to provide the highest level of care, you know, doing these behavior intervention, you know, however we can help these kids. And we want it accessible to the whole entire world. This needs to be accessible to everyone because, you know, autism and developmental disabilities, they don't pick just one area. It's all over the world. And so the fact that, you know, you guys are going forward and doing things like this, doing a discussion to get the word out of what ABA should be, doing your training, expanding the field, it's so important, because we need to provide access to everyone, even in the most remote areas, so that they can know that applied behavior analysis works, and it will help individuals be successful.
Absolutely. Holly, we talked a little bit about what it is that an individual needs to become certified. Could you let the public know what it is that we need to become a coursework provider?
Oh, yes. So to become a coursework provider, it's, you know, I feel like we should make it harder. But, you know, my thought is your job is hard enough. Why would we make it harder? And I say that to a lot of people that I talk with. So to become a coursework provider, you basically have to have a master's level credential or license in the field of applied behavior analysis. And this can be a QBA, it can be a BCBA, it can be a licensed psychologist within the scope of the field. To become a coursework provider. And what you would do is you would just go through the guidelines on our website, make sure your coursework meets those competency standards for whichever course that you want to offer. And then you would provide your certificate, your application, and then a sample of that course as it relates to applied behavior analysis and the competency. So it's quite easy. And, you know, you renew every year, and we actually will post you on our social media, just letting people know that you're a course provider. And it's just, it's a great way for the communities to come together.
One thing that I want to highlight, Holly, is that we do have to provide a sample. You know, we do have to provide a sample of the material. So there is somebody that validates what we are offering the public, which is different than me just saying, well, you know, I am a PCBA, I'm going to create a course in ABA. So there's somebody else that looks at the material that I am creating and validates it. And on top
It's
of
actually
that,
the board. The board is the one who actually, the board of directors is the one that looks at the coursework to make sure it includes everything we need.
yes, and
For
plus, on top of the you know, audit with, you know, the application process, we are continuously audited. Even after we are, you know, coursework providers, we still have to respond to the board on updates of the course material and updates of student progress. So it's not just Lily's course or Mylena's course or Juliana's course. It's a course that QABA is saying they approve.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. All right, so we are coming about the hour, and I would like to know if anybody has any final questions or comments before we wrap it up.
Is there a course in Portuguese for to become a QBA, the coursework?
So right now, we offer the QASPS in Portuguese. I know that there is a need for the QBA and the ABAT, so we are working on that. And that's, you know, that's something that I forgot to mention, is that's another way that we are, you know, reaching out internationally, is we are gathering, if there's a need, we're going to fill it. So, you know, we heard from Portuguese speakers, hey, we need Portuguese exams. So we got a committee together, and, you know, we have the QASPS now. We also have the ABAT in Spanish. We have the QASPS in Arabic and Portuguese. We are working on a Czech translation, Mandarin translation, Japanese. I just had a meeting with Japan, so we'll be doing Japanese as well. So if there's a need, we're going to fill it, because like I said, we need to provide access to the whole entire world, and not everybody speaks English, so can't just be English.
Yeah, I can tell you that it is in our plans, but we need to first finish what we started, and then we work on the QBA course, especially because there will be a point that there will be hopefully a lot of QSBSS in Brazil, and we need QBAs to supervise them. So we will definitely work towards that goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we were team. So.
Yes. Mylena, you had something to say, I thought?
Well, no, it's a good feeling to be able to go to a website and look for someone and find that person is certified, and that certification means that this person has to hold all the responsibility to maintain their certification through studying and developing, a way to provide to others education needed, like with continuing education. I can tell you that coming up with a coursework, it's not an easy task, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes you study a lot, makes you, and it's not only to study, you have to come up with ways to make people to develop the applied abilities. It's not only to make people to know concepts, basic concepts. They have to be able to problem solve, and you have to come up with a really dynamic way to teach people, right? Because if you're that responsible that you really want to make people learn, you have to come up with creative ways to make them to grasp the concepts, but also to problem solve and apply these concepts in a way that is going to benefit others. So it's not an easy task, but I think that's rewarding when you think that you're helping others to first maybe get a profession that they will never be without a job, and helping families to get access to effective treatment.
Absolutely.
Mm.
All right. Any final words, anybody else?
I was just gonna say that I think like there's way more questions that people will definitely want to hear Hollie's thoughts on. So perhaps we can do this again at another time and keep it going to disseminate the opportunities that people in Brazil have with an international certification.
Yes, and at the description of this video, I'm going to put the contact to QABA. I'm going to put a link to the QABA website. I'm going to put a link to each of you if you allow me. And yes, so we can definitely continue this conversation. And I think it's important to continue this conversation. I see this as a process in development. It's not ready by any means. The field is at a point that is, percolating. Many things are percolating. And so we need to work together. It's time really to work for the community. It'd be much easier if I just stuck with my job here. And, but once you know, you know. So once you know the state of the things in Brazil, I can't just stand back and say, their problem. Now that I know it's my problem too. And it's part of the code of ethics. You know of a problem, you are responsible to acting on it. So here we are. So thank you everyone for coming today. Thank you for your time. This was very good. I hope that the public feels well served. So thank you very much, and I see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hollie.
Bye, Hollie.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.